Over the past 365 days, I documented one of my option trades for your benefit so you can learn from it. And today is the big day. Today I'm going to show you the results of this activity. So let's get straight into it. So like I said, I documented one of my option trades every single day. You can go on my website, taikonitos.com, and you can look at the market comment section under the community tab, and you can see every single trade that I documented. The methodology that I used was every single trade was limited to one lot. In other words, I could not sell more than one option against a particular stock. And that is because that was the most realistic way of conducting this series. The real world occasionally presents us with tremendous opportunities. I like to call them no-brainer trades, and in those situations I like to sell as many options as I possibly can. But with this particular series, I limited myself to one option per opportunity. For each profit, I used an annualized calculation. Let's say I invested $100 and I made $20 on it. The basic calculation is that that's a 20% return, but it's not really realistic to look at it that way because how long did it take for you to make that $20? So for this reason, I used an annualized profit calculation, and that allowed me to have a more consistent way of tracking the results. And each individual profit was based on the capital required at the last adjustment. For those of you who are trading, you understand what this means. For those of you who do not trade, don't worry about this. It's just another factor that is important to keep in mind for this calculation. The market, I traded on the New York Stock Exchange. That's where you can trade the most number of options. The option trading activity is quite high there. And even though I'm based in Australia, I prefer to trade on the US market. Time required for these trades, roughly about 15 to 30 minutes every day. It really depends on how many trades you're managing. Later on in this presentation, I will show you that in some instances, I had quite a few open trades. In fact, when the 365 days were up, then I actually had 19 open trades, so that required a little bit more time to manage. But when you're managing a small account, then normally you don't need to spend more than 15 to 30 minutes a day. Timing, most trades took place in the last trading hours, and that is because obviously I like to sleep at night, and because of the time difference between Australia and the US, I could only trade in the last hour of the trading day. So that's just a limitation on me. But if you're based in other parts of the world, then obviously you have the opportunity to keep an eye out for the market more intensively than I do. But frankly speaking, it's not necessarily something that I would want to do even if I lived in a different time zone. The more you look at the market, the more time you spend on it, and the more stress you can cause to yourself if something goes against you. So 2022 is when I started this daily trade log on the 17th of February. And as you know, if you follow the market, if you follow any sort of news that has anything to do with economics, then you know that 2022 was a very, very challenging year for the markets around the world. Inflation was hammering most of the countries, and if you look at where we started back in January 2022, where the SPY was at 476, and a year later it closed at 382, down 19.7%. And as you can see, we had some massive swings, and a lot of the stocks lost more than 70% of their value. So it was a very, very challenging year for a lot of traders, for a lot of investors. Most people lost money, and of course, the overall market also lost a fair bit of value. When I started my daily trade series, which was once again on the 17th of February, some of the damage was already behind us. The January, if we go back to the previous slide, you can see that the market collapse in January was quite heavy. So the overall result during my daily trade series was minus 7.9%. So it was much better than the 2022 result, but it's still obviously a negative figure. And when you invest your money, you don't want to lose money. My benchmark was this minus 7.9% because that covers the period when I ran the daily trade series. So the results. The win rate. Number of trades, 246. Now, obviously, we're talking about a 365-day period, but not every single day is a trading day. Weekends are off, and there are some public holidays. And I believe that I did miss one or two. I got a very, very small number of days where I just simply wasn't able to make a trade. The win rate, 224 wins, 6 losses. And like I said, 19 trades are still open or were open at the time of completing the 365 days. So the win rate is 97.4%. That in itself is, it's a beautiful number. But if one of your losses was a significant loss, then it doesn't matter what that win rate shows. Because with option trading, if you're not doing it right, then you might win, let's say, 50 times and then you lose once, and that one loss can wipe away the profit of the previous 50 trades. So you just have to keep that in mind. But overall, the 97.4% win rate is really good. So let's take a look at the annualized profit distribution. Most of the trades generated between 240 and 500% annualized profits, and we had quite a few trades that generated between 1,000 and 5,000% annualized profits. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean that you invest $1,000 and you walk away with 100,000 or 500,000? No, absolutely not. That's not how option trading works. You place a trade and then let's say within a few days you close the deal and that's it, you move on. But when you look at that particular trade, then your annualized profit can be very, very high. And the whole idea of options trading is that you do this over and over and over, and all those small profits in dollar terms will add up over time. You will see this later on in my presentation. So let's take a look at the P&L distribution. We can see that the majority of the trades generated between $25 and $50. So this is exactly what I was talking about, that when you trade options, it's a lot of smaller amounts that you need to focus on. You know, if you're trying to focus on generating, let's say, $500 or $1,000 per trade, then you're not going to succeed trading options because that's not how options work. So as you can see, most of my trades generated between $25 to $50, and yet there are strategies where you can focus on generating more per trade, but I like to go for the quick turnaround trade. So this is the fun stuff. This is basically the overall results. This is where you can see my ROI and the capital utilized. So let me explain you this chart. So the yellow line is showing you the ROI, so the return on investment. The blue line is showing the total capital invested. It fluctuates because let's say over here I had 19 trades and I closed 2 of them, then I generated some profit. So the overall capital that is being deployed drops and my profit increases. So that's how you need to understand this. And the red line shows the realized profit. And over here at the very end, you can see a little spike. That is because I needed to make a manual adjustment to cater for the open positions. So I had 19 open positions, and overall those 19 positions had quite a nice value in them. So I just added them at the very end on the very last day of the daily trade series. So as you can see, if you focus on the yellow line, the ROI exceeded 20%. But what you also need to take into consideration is that for this exercise, what I did is every single time I deployed, let's say, $1, I actually recorded $2 as capital deployed or capital invested. That's because in the real world, when you trade options, you always have to make sure that you have sufficient amount of capital on the side just in case a trade works against you. So for example, let's say you have a $10,000 account. It would be very, very silly for you to go ahead and spend $10,000 of your capital on trading options, because if something goes against you, very quickly you're going to have to liquidate your positions, even your losing positions, and that's a recipe for disaster. It is highly recommended that you don't utilize more than 50% of your capital. So that's why for this calculation I multiplied the actual cash that I deployed by 2, and that is being represented by the blue line. So if we take a look at the 20% return on the capital invested, then it actually means 40% plus return on the cash that I used. I hope it makes sense. So let's move on to the next slide. This is pretty much the same calculation. So what I did is I basically made a little adjustment to how I calculated my profits. Because when you have a trading account, normally you start somewhere and you generate some profit, and then your trading account grows, and as it grows you have more opportunity to trade more, and it's pretty much an exponential growth. Or you can also, let's say every single month you can allocate additional cash to your trading and your account size naturally grows. So what I did in here is, as you can see, this is where I started the daily trade log series, and over time I needed to allocate more and more capital to this account or this daily trade log activity, and the total capital that I went up to was about $82,000. So I also wanted to see my performance against the peak capital that I deployed. So over here you can see that even against the peak capital, my ROI was quite nice, over 15%. And once again, I need to emphasize that these calculations are based on the capital allocated, not the cash that has been deployed. So here is my bottom line. The peak capital was $82,870. The total profit was $12,000, so just under $13,000. The ROI on the peak capital was 15.69%. The ROI on the actual capital was 20.30%, and the ROI on the cash was 40.60. Obviously, it's double the ROI on actual capital. If we take it into perspective, during the same period, the market was down 7.9%. That's a significant uplift compared to how the overall market performed during that period. So I hope these results inspired you to trade options. If you want to go ahead, then you can reach out to me and I can help you get started. I can help you learn how to trade options. You can either trade with me for $5 a week, or you can also ask for a one-on-one consultation, and that will be $100 per hour. You can reach me via tycoonitos.com. And if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and spread the word and trade options. And thank you for watching.